This is ESPN Cricinfo Match Day presented by Maruti Suzuki. India in complete control of the fourth and final test at the Sydney Cricket Ground after making Australia follow on. It's the first time it's happened on home soil since 1988. Australia 6 for no wicket in their second innings, having been bowled out in that second session for 300. And a very bleak picture for the Aussies there at the SCG. Here in the studio, I have Sanjay Manjrekar for his comments, and in Sydney, my hometown, we have Damien Martyn. Let's start with you, Damien, about the batting performance after the rain-affected start to this fourth day.
Sorry, it's cut out, sorry.
What about Australia's batting performance after the rain-affected start to this fourth day?
Yeah, look, it's pretty bleak here in Sydney as well, so it's a bit like the Aussie batting at the moment, isn't it? No fight once again. We saw the top order, and then the rest of the batting lineup today. You know, Kuldeep getting 5 wickets as well, just bamboozled them with his spin, and they haven't found their batting groove the whole series. And a big test now. You know, a bit of rain maybe around. It's a bit dark and overcast, so they get back out after tea. It's going to be tough batting conditions for them. A big test.
Sanjay, who would have thought Australia following on at home at the SCG? Hasn't happened in any test match since 2005. We have to go back to 1988 against England. I think it was David Gower and Mike Gatting, the captain of England then. How low has Australian cricket fallen?
Batting, what has happened with the batting is not a surprise because before the series started, everyone knew that the Australian batting was weak and India's batting as well was as weak before the series started. But India had Pujara who came to their rescue. Australia found no one. And the pressure is relentless, Jason, because you've got 4 world-class bowlers bowling at one time. I know Kuldeep Yadav has just started his career, but the challenge that he's posing is quite difficult for the Australian batsmen. So if you escape from Bumrah, there's Shami there to get you. Escape Shami, there's Jadeja, and now there's Kuldeep Yadav as well. So you got to feel for them. And once India got Australia's Pujara out very early in the morning, which is Pat Cummins, things became really easy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Kuldeep Yadav, his second 5-4 in test matches, just his 6th test. I mean, it was Sanjay, the way he bowled, very intelligent. Obviously, the pitch not doing a lot. I mean, the SCG is known to be a turner, but it's not a massive turner, is it?
No, and he made this adjustment to test match bowling very quickly. And the last time I saw him on a foreign pitch was in England at Lord's, where he was trying to get a wicket every ball. Lots of flight, which were converted into full tosses. When he bowled a little shorter, batsmen would go on the back foot and play the pull shot or the cuts. Here, he became a little more mechanical in the way he bowled. He bowled a flatter trajectory, waited for the batsman to make mistakes. He wasn't bowling the wrong guns as much. He kept it simple. And it's amazing how people like Bumrah and Kuldeep Yadav have made the adjustment to test match cricket so quickly.
Yeah, and the way that he bowled, now he's in very elite company with Anil Kumble getting 5 wickets in Australia in an overseas test match. This was really fantastic, wasn't it, the way that he's shown. You know, he's an exciting bowler to watch. We love watching him in action. But when we look at the, compared to Kumble, what would you say about his potential in the Indian test team?
Well, clearly he's not a new kid on the block. Everyone knows his talents. That's been seen mostly in white ball cricket and in Indian conditions, where he got 9 wickets in his first 2 test matches, got 5 against West Indies at home. But this is a performance that will get him, worldwide recognition because he's performed well away from home. Anil Kumble bowled to better batsmen, as simple as that. So it's a little unfair. So when you look at the whole series, you've got to look at it slightly differently from what the stats show of the past, because we've never seen an Australian batting in such shambles, where at the end of the 4-match series with 1 innings to go, the highest score is in the 70s. I mean, that's
79.
Yeah. That's really absolutely woeful and depressing for Australian, cricket supporters. Thankfully, it's a temporary situation with Warner and Smith likely to come back.
Well, let's get Damien Martyn's view on Kuldeep Yadav. We know at the SCG, Damien, we've seen some fantastic spin performances over the years in test matches, but put into perspective what Kuldeep's done in this match.
I think, getting 5 for any time in a test match, but here overseas and in Sydney, look, the batting lineup, as Sanjay mentioned, is probably not as good as in the past of what's going on, but he's still to get 5 wickets. He's done the job. It's a tough craft too, what he does. It's, we see the odd full toss, the odd short ball, but he keeps plugging away. He mentioned Shane Warne's his mentor. He speaks to Shane Warne every morning about his bowling, and he said last night, I heard in the coverage, he was watching Shane Warne on YouTube last night, getting ready for today. So something must have worked.
Yeah.
So a typical Australian thought that the Australian taking credit for an Indian performance, isn't it, Damien?
Yeah, indeed. But we did see him. I mean, Damien's 100% right. We did see Shane Warne with him before the Test match, and I think obviously he looks up to him. But, how difficult is he to pick, do you think, the way he throws in the different deliveries?
Not difficult to pick because he focuses more on turning the ball a lot more. He focuses on getting bounced. So his releases with his different variations are very classical and thereby easier to spot. He's not like Rashid Khan of Afghanistan, who's very difficult to gauge what he's bowling. So Kuldeep Yadav is more about turning the ball, trajectories, teasing with flight. He's not out there to bamboozle the batsman so much with his variation because his release is such that the batsman can see it. And that's why, when he's looking to get greater spin of the ball, the wrong gun has to go absolutely like that so that the spin is more, his leg spin as well. The whole twirl is given so the batsman can see it, but it's about seeing it and then playing it, right? So that's where the problem is.
Well, hold that thought, Sanjay, because we have a question on Facebook I'd like to put to you about Kuldeep and this fantastic performance to pick up 5 wickets in the first innings. Why does Kuldeep seem to get a lot more zip off the wicket in limited overs cricket with a white ball compared to red ball cricket when the ball seems to come off the pitch slowly and therefore easier for the batsman to adjust? A very good question from Jitin.
Yeah, it's an illusion actually, because when batsmen are trying to tonk him for 4s and 6s, it seems like he's beaten them in turn, and in fact he actually bowls slower in the air in white ball cricket. If you compare speeds of Kuldeep Yadav in white ball cricket versus how he's bowled in this inning, you'll find that he's bowled a lot quicker here. And obviously he hasn't bowled as much in Australia in white ball cricket, and this pitch has been slow. We saw Nathan Lyon being quite playable in this series. So that's another indication, but it's more an illusion when you see a batsman going down the pitch and trying to hit him for a 6 and Dhoni collects it and removes the bail. So it seems like he's getting sharper turn and bounce.
Maybe we could ask Damien Martyn about how you'd compare Kuldeep to other unorthodox left-arm wrist spinners.
Well, there's been a few. I mean, in WA it was Bradley Hogg as well bowling, and I think you don't come across it much, do you, in Test match cricket? So. And I think the Australian batsmen aren't picking him that well. I mean, Sanjay's right there. I mean, you can see what he's bowling. He does try and spin it. He's got great flight. But I think some of the batsmen are struggling by their shot selection, by feeling under pressure. Khawaja first innings trying to hit him down the ground, get caught at mid-wicket. Lyon trying to sweep him within 3 balls. So that shows to me they aren't really confident on facing him and used to facing a left-arm leg spinner.
Well, let's focus again on Australia's batting, which is really a sorry talking point. No centuries by the Aussies in this 4-match Test series so far, and of course 5 from India. What does that say about the state of Australian batting at the moment?
As I said, I mean, this is not something that has surprised too many people. I remember Ian Chappell talking on this platform, ESPN Cricinfo, where he said that if Australia gets, Australia will get 315 occasionally. So this was all preempted by people who have followed Australian cricket very closely. What has changed the equation has been that India have batted better. India also went to Australia with the same weakness. There's quality in both sides with the bowling. India bowled better than Australia, which was unexpected. And India's batting also, let's not get fooled in saying that Indian batting has vastly improved. We've had failures as well. Rahul hasn't got going, Murali Vijay as well. Then Ajinkya Rahane hasn't played as well as he would like. Hanuma Vihari has got the odd 50. Rishabh Pant got 150, but mostly 30s. Pujara has made the difference to begin with, and then the Virat Kohli contribution.
All right, what about the fight of the Australian team? Let's bring up a quote from Ricky Ponting on Channel 7. He was talking about the dismissal of Nathan Lyon, where it was an LBW, but didn't even refer it and have a look at a second look. This is what he said. That dismissal actually says a lot to me about the mindset of this Australian team at the moment. There's no desperation there whatsoever. Why wouldn't they had a look at that? They've still got 2 reviews up their sleeves. There had to be some sort of review. Given out straight away, Mitchell Starc just puts up his hand and says, oh, well, it's not me, it's up to you. You can make a call. Well, unfortunately, when you're out there together, it's a partnership. You've got to do whatever you can to try and save your mate. And there was absolutely none of that there. And as it's shown already, that would have been given not out. Slack and not desperate enough. We've got to ask Damien Martyn about his reaction to that. Damien, I mean, that's pretty harsh from Ricky Ponting, but do you agree with it?
Well, yeah, it's Ricky Ponting, and no one wanted it more, was more desperate than him, with his batting. But yeah, you're right. 2 reviews up your sleeve. I mean, in fast motion, it looks bad, doesn't it? The full toss sort of with the way line plays. But he's right. I think through the whole group, there hasn't been enough desperation and want and need to play well, to get stuck in and just fight. And this innings is a big one. They've got to fight it out. Wants to see some desperation and just bat. Even if we're none for 100 or none for 200, the runs don't mean anything. And I think past players and the media now looking at this team going, we just want to see some fight. We want to see some grit and a little bit of Pujara. He's been extreme in this Test series, but a little bit of fight and just face balls and stay in.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, desperation.
Can I just react to Ponting's remarks there? Not harsh at all. In fact, very accurate in what he said, because we were all watching the game, weren't we? You were there, myself, Ajit Agarkar in the lounge, a couple of ESPN Cricinfo staff sitting there, and all of us were wondering, why isn't he reviewing that? And he's absolutely right. This is what the Australian fans want to see. Even in this situation, desperation to get better, give themselves some chance to compete. Not reviewing that, it looked a little dodgy. I thought the impact would have been outside the off stump. They had 2 reviews, and just not caring about it and just happy to walk away is very un-Australian.
Yeah, I was going to say un-Australian is the word, because we've seen the history of Australian cricket, the fighting quality, Damien, and especially playing at home at the SCG. It's really very sad for Aussie cricket fans.
Yeah, it's been disappointing. We came to the Test series. I thought India would win, but I thought we'd play a little bit better. Pujara stood up, but I just thought overall India with their team would do well and beat us. But just seen nothing from Stark's been quite. Most of our bowlers have been quite. Our batting has been disappointing. It's got some senior players there who haven't stood up, and we can't keep saying let's wait for Smith and Warner come back. That's not the way it works.
Good point.
Players get injured and players move on. That's happened in the past with great players even retiring. That's no excuse at the moment.
All right, we have a question for our experts via various social channels on ESPN Cricinfo. This is via Facebook. And the question from Pradeep is this the weakest ever Australian cricket team to have taken the field, comparing with the team led by Steve Waugh et al.? So I'll ask you first about that, Sanjay. Is it the weakest? I mean, of course, we go back to the 80s after, and then Damien mentions about players exiting. We had Chappell, Marsh, Lilly all exiting at the same time. Kim Hughes took over. Very weak team then. But how do you compare that team to this team?
Weakest batting lineup that I've seen, but not the weakest team, because their bowling is still high quality. But because the batting has been such shambles, the overall team looks very weak. If they go down 3-1 against this team, which had a batting weakness of its own, it will be one of their most, tragic results.
What about you, Damien? Is it the weakest team that you can remember for the Australian national test team? Oh, we seem to have lost him. But what about the way forward for India in this final session? As far as, what do you do bowling-wise? You try and get Kuldeep back on early, do you think?
I think the rain was a blessing in disguise for India, because it took some time away from, the players were not on the field and inside the dressing room, so they were relaxing. Their feet must have been up. So the fast bowlers would not have felt the fatigue had they bowled in that morning session and immediately, having been required to bowl again. Plus the fact that the Australians are being so friendly to the Indians by getting out early, they haven't really made them work too much. Jadeja has bowled a lot, Kuldeep Yadav has bowled a lot, so they're reasonably fresh now to take the field. And with the rain around, and now again bad light issue, it was a no-brainer. Virat Kohli was going to enforce the follow-on.
Let me ask that question now to Damien Martyn in Sydney. You've seen a lot of Australian cricket teams over the years during your playing career and since then. Is this the weakest team that you can remember for Australia at Test level?
Well, yes, it's the weakest batting lineup, definitely. The bowlers, we've got a good lineup there, but the batting, it's just, look back, yes, to the 80s, when Alan Border took over early days, in the 80s and restructured this whole team. They copped a bit, playing the Windies, the great side of the Windies back then, and not winning much. But we built a culture and a structure and a team sort of ethics and way we went about through, starting with Alan Border, that worked all its way through. And, okay, through the South African incident, maybe that's affected the team and the guys a lot more than just 2 guys missing out or 3 guys missing out, but mainly Smith and Warner. That something's going on there. Or first-class cricket as well. Not enough guys making runs and putting their hands up.
Yeah, no one's really putting their hands up. That's the big question, isn't it, Sanjay?
Yeah, can I ask Damien whether temperamentally also what has happened in South Africa, Damien, you know what happened there and the kind of furor that it created in Australia. Do you think the mindset of the Australian team also has changed a bit? I mean, the skills are clearly not there, but has that added to their problems?
I think so, Sanjay. I think, yeah, you're right. The skills aren't there. We've seen that, and that's a bigger issue and a bigger sort of situation to discuss with our first-class cricket. I think it's got a bit weaker, a bit mentally not as tough as what it was. But then I think what happened in South Africa and the media and the mindset of Cricket Australia and the players to be nice and just go about their cricket in a certain way, I don't know, something's happened. And I think, we've seen Bancroft come out on TV and talk about Warner and the incident. So now there's a bit of bad blood flying around and there's things and accusations being said. I just think it wouldn't go well in that change room at times.
Well, Damien, you're only 47. We saw Bobby Simpson come back at the age of 41. Is it too late to make a comeback and help save that Australian batting lineup?
Can I just face spin? Is that right? SCG? Yeah. No quicks.
You can lay down conditions. Australia will accept it.
Yeah, I would love to have a player like Damien Martyn there in our middle order at the moment. I mean, when you compare the quality of him, and the guys there at the moment, it really is very sad.
And I think somewhere people like Usman Khwaja and Sean Marsh have to take a lot of the blame. Because look at India, Pujara, Virat aside and Rishabh Pant's 150 aside, India have had their issues, but Pujara and Virat Kohli stood up when it was needed. Usman Khwaja has enough skills, experience, and Sean Marsh as well. So I think they should get a few demerit points from the selectors.
All right, we have another question via our social channels for our experts. It's actually via Facebook, and here is the question. This is for Damien. Damien, do you still get nightmares of Ntini's bounces hitting you on the hand? Makaya Ntini, what a great fast bowler for South Africa.
Did you get me or was it Justin Langer? They were talking about Justin Langer there.
Oh, he's one of the West Australian, right?
Yeah, West Australian, yeah. I'm not sure it was me. I think Ntini has nightmares about me batting against him, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think you got a few against him in South Africa. I mean, he was... who do you have nightmares about? Anyone in particular? You mean you faced some of the Windies in their prime?
My career started with Curtly Ambrose,
I was going to say
Courtney Walsh and Patrick Patterson. So they're my nightmares.
Yeah, that was... I mean, imagine this Australian team facing that West Indies attack, huh?
Yeah, I mean, nightmares of... Curtly Ambrose is, everyone's nightmare.
Who do you get nightmares about?
Yeah, to an extent, Curtly Ambrose. Yeah. I played him in my second test. But he mentioned Patrick Patterson. Now, more than his bowling, him just running in and getting that, front leg up where you could actually see the sole of his shoes and the spikes and how many spikes were missing as you were batting. So that was more frightening than anything else.
All right, we have another question, I believe, for our experts via Facebook. This one is for Sanjay Manjrekar. Let's have a look at this question via Mr. Shah. Don't you think by continuously saying that Australian batting lineup is weak, you are discrediting all the work of India's bowlers? Any quality lineup would have struggled, surely.
I think a lot of credit has been given to this bowling attack. Bumrah has now become as talked about Indian player as Virat Kohli. Lots of accolades coming his way. Kuldeep Yadav will get a few. Everyone applauding Shami as well. So enough has been said about Indian bowling. This pitch was the ultimate sort of nail in the coffin for Australia's batting, because this was a flat pitch, and had they put 425-50 runs, then the Indian bowling would have been then acknowledged and appreciated more. Them collapsing in the way on the flattest pitch in the series and to balls that weren't wicket-taking deliveries.
Yep.
It's understandable for people to talk about Australian batting and not so much about the Indian bowling.
Good point. Okay, one more question via Facebook, I believe. This one is for Damien Martyn in Sydney, Australia. The question from Mr. Patil is, who is your next leader? He's talking about the Australian team. What changes, Damien, need to be made in the leadership group to put Australian cricket going forwards? We're heading towards an Ashes series, of course.
It must be a massive fan because he spelled my last name wrong. Okay, come on, what's going on here? India? I thought I had fans in India.
English, is our third or fourth language.
Phonetically, it was correct. So.
Good question. Next leader? Well, I think Steve Smith will come back in at some stage, and I think probably slot back in there. We spoke about Cummings. Look, Tim Payne has done a good job. It's been a hard road for him taking over this side. I think his captaincy has lacked in certain areas, especially compared to a Kohli with tactics and going about it. But probably the ideal man to take over since South Africa to calm it all down. And then I think we'll go back to Steve Smith.
Yeah,
not right away, Damien. Steve Smith right away because of what's happened.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if he came back in, would you think he'd go straight to the captaincy, or would he come back in and just slot back in? I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe he won't want to do it straight away to get back in the side.
Yeah, that's the question. What are we going to see when when Stephen Smith gets back in the side along with David Warner? What kind of improvement will we see? What will the decisions be made within the leadership group? And what will Tim Payne be doing?
Only good things will happen for Australia, I think, once they've come back. And I want to say it again and again that they didn't fix matches. There have been players who've been banned for fixing matches. They were caught doing something that was very silly. Right? Yeah, ball tampering has happened. With a lot of players. Faf du Plessis captaining South Africa, he's been caught twice. But I think the climate in Australia was such that the timing of that mistake that Australia made was very bad. But I have all the time for people being given a second chance, and that's why I believe that with Tim Payne doing a pretty good job. But what we have not seen right through the series, Jason, is I call it the heat in the contest, not banter or sledging, but just got to be Australia have to be competitive. That DRS thing is another indication. With Steve Smith back, and quickly back as leader, because there are not too many exciting options. Had Khwaja developed rapidly as a player, or Sean Marsh, they would have been good options. But Steve Smith is a great player, and there's something about his leadership. So try and fast track that as much as possible. And I keep saying this, it wasn't a massive crime that they committed. It was something very silly. There was cheating involved, but it's not the first time that has happened. There are at least 10 or 15 players at the international level who have done the same thing and caught for the same act that Steve Smith, David Warner and the others did.
And Damien, it was a complete revamp for Australian cricket, not just within the team, but in administration, all over the place. And surely that's going to have a big effect as well.
Definitely, our new CEO and a few board members are gone. We've seen Mark Taylor go as well, and a lot of shake-up. There's still a lot of shake-up now. As I said, there was an interview of Bancroft recently on Channel 7, talking to Adam Gilchrist and sort of dropping David Warner in it a bit more. So you've got to think, if all those guys get back in the same side at some stage, I'm not sure that change room's going to go. But look, rightly so, I think Cricket Australia had to stamp down on something. I agree with Sanjay. They deserve a second chance. It's happened before. But I just think what was happening in Australia at that stage, they stamped down on it from a cultural point of view to try and just get better. I think David Warner for a while had been, crossing the line, and it was probably his time to sort of get a slap on the wrist.
I think we have another question for Sanjay Manjrekar via our social channels. But before that, do you have a comment to add to what Damien said?
Just that I can't see Steve Smith and David Warner coming in and becoming the same kind of players they were before the ban. I think they'll be completely different, if not completely, at least marginally different, which will be good enough for Australia.
Okay, so I think we have another question via YouTube for Sanjay. We'll get Damien to weigh in on this as well. Heartening to see an Indian spinner taking full advantage of the pitch overseas. Sanjay, do you think wrist spin is the way to go away? Ashwin in second innings was found wanting at Adelaide.
Selection headaches for Indian selectors, even in the spin department. Because now you've got 3 spinners and 1 slot. If you go to an overseas tour, you're going to pick your 3 in-form quality seamers. And if the pitch is normal and not a ranked, potential ranked turner, you want 1 spinner. So now, actually, Kuldeep Yadav has shown on a good pitch as well to be a wicket-taking option. So India have got 3 options: Ashwin, Jadeja, and Kuldeep Yadav. And at this stage, I don't know which is the one that I would take. So, but it's great to have 3 exciting alternatives.
And Damien, what's your view on that? Who's the spinner you'd least like to face in an overseas test playing for India if you were still playing?
What do I get the tough question for? I think, left arm leg spin is hard to face because you don't get a lot of it. I watch Ashwin. I think it looks difficult to face at times to pick him and his variations. So it's a tough one, but a great one for India. Cricket, I would sort of say at the moment, I'd find it difficult to get Ashwin probably. To pick one.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get an update on the Fab Four. Lots of wickets falling in the last session. Let's have a look at what Sanjay has done. So, Sanjay, what would you say about your performance today?
Well, Kuldeep has done well, 5 points. So I've scored a lot, but unfortunately, Ajit Agarkar was copying my notes. He's got Kuldeep Yadav as well, so I'm not going to take a big lead over Ajit Agarkar, who at the moment is my only threat. Damien Martyn is like the distance between us and him physically. There is a big distance between him and on points as well, Damien.
Yeah, I think Ajit is in a strong second position. Of course, Damien Martyn's Fab Four. Let's see how he's done. Damien, you can see Jasprit Bumrah's done okay for you and Kuldeep Yadav, but the other two haven't really performed for you.
Kohli, what was he doing following on? Did he know I was in this game? trying to get some points. The weather in Sydney's cost me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Aussies aren't winning anything at the moment. Let's have a look at what Ajit Agarkar has done in the Fab Four. We'll get Sanjay to... he's really, as you said, copying you, isn't he, Sanjay?
Absolutely. He copied Kuldeep Yadav and somebody else the other day, but yeah.
Let's see how that affects the leaderboard in the Fab Four with Sanjay Manjrekar at the top. 678 is pretty tight. We still have another day to go. And Damien, well, I think you'll have to be preparing for next time, right?
Yeah, you can see Ajit Agarkar is missing, so don't rule out any sort of devious plan of mine to stay leader.
Yeah, I think he's getting some research now, some super research from our ESPN Cricinfo stats gurus. All right, I think that's about a wrap on the ESPN Cricinfo Match Day show. The covers are on, so the final session is delayed on day 4 of the 4th cricket test. Thank you very much to Sanjay Manjrekar. Thank you to Damien Martyn. This has been ESPN Cricinfo Match Day presented by Martyn Suzuki.